Hi everyone, my name is Brooke and welcome to Pippa & Co. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. This is my first video I've ever uploaded on YouTube. I figured it was about time. I have been knitting since around 2022, but that was really just knitting kits that would take me more than a year to complete. My first full year of knitting continuously was in 2024, and then last year I really got into it. So I decided I wanted to start sharing my knits online. I have been watching knitting vlogs for a long time, even before I started knitting. I started with Kutova Kika, and my interest in knitting has really just grown from there. So really excited to finally put myself out there and try to be a more active member of this community that I've already gained so much from and learned so much from. So if you're taking the time to watch this video, I really appreciate it. So again, I'm Brooke. I'm a knitter from Massachusetts, and I'm very excited to be putting myself out there on YouTube. So let's start out with what I'm wearing. How surreal to say that. This is a knit that I completed in 2024, so my first real year of knitting. And this is the Robinson wrap cardigan, which I knit in Knitting for Olive, merino, and soft silk mohair in the color artichoke purple. I made this. This was one of my first serious yarn and knitting projects. I actually shopped for the yarn on a trip to Savannah, Georgia with my mom. We had a little girls' weekend, and I bought the yarn from the store Frayed Knot. The woman who ran that store was really kind and was very patient with me as I was super indecisive about whether I was ready to knit with mohair yet. And I'm really proud of this sweater. I think the Robinson wrap cardigan, which is a pattern by Florence Miller, has some really beautiful details. I love the I-cord tie, and I love this double knit button band that goes all the way around the sweater. I think it gives it such a beautiful store-bought quality that I really admire in this sweater. A few things that I don't love so much about this sweater that are entirely user error and have nothing to do with the wonderful pattern. I did not gauge swatch for this at all. This was in my era where I was like, I don't need to gauge swatch, which is wrong. I'm an extremely tight knitter, and so no matter what, I need to go up a needle size, and I did not on this pattern. In fact, I went down a needle size because I wanted the fabric to not be see-through. It really bothered me if I could see through it at all. What I didn't take into account is how warm that would make this sweater, and how kind of cropped it would end up being. Because I tried to follow the pattern to a T, not based on measurements, but based on, kind of the stitch counts and everything that were given. So it came out a little tight and extremely warm. Hopefully I can keep it on for the entirety of this video, but we'll see how that goes. I knit the sleeves pretty tight, and I extended the ribbing a little bit, I believe relative to the pattern, because I wanted it to have kind of a long ribbing daintiness to it. Overall though, really happy with this pattern. I love the color and I love the memories attached to it. It always reminds me of the trip with my mom. And just to address this, if you keep seeing me looking down, that's because I have my list in front of me so I don't miss anything. So the first sweater that I finished in 2025 is this brown beauty. This is actually the Leon sweater pattern by Petite Knit. And if you are familiar with that pattern at all, you will know it is typically a striped pattern, but I knit it in a solid color. The reason I chose this pattern out of all of the Petite Knit patterns was because I have very specific preferences for shoulder shaping and details in a sweater, number one. And number two, I was trying to replicate a sweater I had seen from Reformation that was also brown. I was in a very brown obsessed era. I believe I still am, actually. And I was looking for very specific details, and the Leon Lion sweater just happened to have those. Specifically, I wanted a set-in shoulder. So I am someone who has very broad shoulders, and despite this sweater actually being a raglan, I find that raglans tend to cut me off a little weird and make my shoulders accentuate my shoulders in a way I don't like. I've come to love my shoulders, but I don't like being cut off like that. So I loved the set-in sleeve and this shoulder detail, if you can see right there, where the increases are on the shoulders. I made a few modifications to this sweater because I really just wanted the base pattern. I forgot to say I knit this in Cascade 220 in the color Chocolate Heather. So the few modifications I made, I did double or 2x2 ribbing for all of the cuffs and the neckline, and I made it a split hem, as you can see right there. And I am simply obsessed with this sweater. It is probably one of my most worn knits ever. It is so easy to throw on. I love to wear it with with jeans and a little leopard print belt. I find that to be really cute. And I'm just so happy with it. I think it came out really neat. I knit this like obsessively after I got the yarn for Christmas and finished it in early January. It was the fastest I've ever knit something. And I'm also extremely pleased with Cascade 220. It's such a reasonably priced yarn, and I think it's beautiful quality. I've never maintained this sweater at all. There's a little pilling that you can see right there, but for the amount of wear I've gotten out of this, I don't think it's bad at all. I think it looks brand new, and it's something I'm extremely happy with. So, first knit of the year. My second knit of 2025 was the Sophie scarf, which is not at all surprising. If you are a knitter, I'm sure you have come across this scarf before. I actually knit this in yarn that I also bought while traveling. I was in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I popped into Spun in Ann Arbor, and I was just, kind of shopping around. It was a wonderful, wonderful yarn store, and I found this kind of like blushy, dusty pink, kind of a neutral yarn, and absolutely fell in love with it. Not only the color, but the way it feels. It's Woolfolk Far in the color 28, and it's kind of like this chainette, is that what you call it? Chainette yarn. It says that it's a worsted weight. I would be shocked if that was true. It knit up much more like a light DK, I think, especially after blocking, but I think it gave it this really nice drape, and it is so soft to wear. Despite all of that, I unfortunately have not worn it too much. I don't know why, because I think it's absolutely adorable. Oh, look at it. I love it so much. I think I don't know if I'm cool enough to wear a scarf like this without it looking like I'm, I don't know, playing pretend, but it's gorgeous and it's so soft. So I am going to make an effort to wear this more. And actually I will be wearing this tonight. I'm hosting a knitting event for my coworkers, and one of the knitting patterns that I'm bringing to teach, if there's people who are like intermediate knitters, have knit before, I'm going to bring this pattern so people can give it a go and I can teach them how to knit it. I think it's funny that this pattern is listed as being a beginner knit pattern. Not that there's anything in it that's particularly difficult, it's just that you really have to keep count, or you can end up with something that's very uneven. And so I think for a beginner knitter, that might be a little bit too much brain power if you're trying to also learn just the basic stitches. So that's why I said intermediate. The next thing I knit, I don't have with me. It was like my biggest flop of 2025. I knit a pair of lemon loafers by Drops Designs in the color orange. It was Drops Alaska yarn, which is what the pattern calls for. I knit these slippers for my boyfriend. They were supposed to be a part of his Christmas gift. Very belated. I finished them in March. The problem is my boyfriend has size 13 feet and they're extremely narrow. And so I knit up this pattern, I felted it in the washing machine, and they shrunk to the right size. But the problem is that the pattern didn't have a long enough, like it wasn't long enough over the back of the foot. And so they kind of ended up looking like ballet flats on his size feet and just like would not stay on his feet at all. So that was a flop. I don't even know if I have a picture of them because he tried them on and we were both like, well, that was a fail. I think it could be worthwhile for me to try knitting him the very popular sailor slippers at some point this year because I'm wondering if that would fit his feet better, just given, you know, the length of the top of the foot might prevent them from slipping off of his feet. Okay. That brings me to sweater or finished object number 4 of 2025, which was sweater number 15 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. This pattern, number 1, was a dream to knit. Number 2 was one of the patterns that I had been dreaming of knitting from when I first got into knitting. I feel like this pattern was having a moment when I first started watching knitting podcasts, and I just remember thinking it was so beautiful. I loved the kind of flared body, flared sleeves, how dramatic the details were, and the details of the cable around the neckline and across the shoulders. And I knew that I wanted to knit it in kind of a grayish color. And so I knit it in Knitting for Olive, merino, and soft silk mohair in the color oatmeal. And this is absolutely one of my favorite things I've ever made. I was not only inspired by all of the people who had knit it online, but also one of my closest friends had a sweater that looked really similar in a very similar color, and I was just obsessed with it. And I was like, you know what? That's gonna be my dream, to knit that sweater. And so this was like the first thing I ever knit where I was like, wow, I'm a knitter. Like, I can do things. I can do hard things. So again, so beautiful. I love the twisted rib details on the cuff and the neckline. Twisted rib, if I'm doing a 1x1 rib, twisted rib is absolutely the way I always want to go. I think my twisted rib comes out very neat. I love the color. I think it is so easy to wear, and the fabric is just so beautifully light and drapey, not itchy at all. I don't get hot when I wear it. I just don't have enough good things to say about this pattern. I get compliments every time I wear it. And I also have some special memories with this sweater. You know, my mom has worn this sweater a few times. My best friend, whose sweater inspired this knit, actually, when she came and visited me, she borrowed it when we went out to dinner. And so I love I don't even know what to say. I just love this sweater. I'm losing all words. So my next knit of 2025 was also somewhat of a flop, but I was just trying it on again in preparation for this video, and I was like, why was this a flop? I don't know. It's actually really cute, and it's this hat. It is called The Twist It Hat by Kutova Kika, and it's from this book, Knits to Wear. I love this book. I think it is so fun to flip through. I bought it because, again, Kutova Kika was one of the reasons, or Veronica Lindbergh was one of the reasons I got into knitting in the first place. And I got into knitting, I think, after she published her first book. So I never really felt a need to buy that one because I liked the newer patterns she was coming out with more than the ones that were in that book. So when she came out with this one, I was like, absolutely buying this. There were more more than a few patterns in here that I was like, I will absolutely be knitting those. So hence here I am. So this hat, this hat. First of all, I bought this yarn online. This is a Sorella yarn in the color 22 Etoile, and the yarn weight, it's their classic DK 100% superwash. This was my first time knitting with superwash yarn, and despite what I've heard online my whole knitting career about the fact that superwash yarn grows and grows and grows and grows, I didn't necessarily believe it. So the hat ended up coming out looser than I would have liked. The basic story of this hat, I started out by knitting a different hat in that same book. I knit the Chloe hat. The thing I didn't like about the Chloe hat with this yarn is the Chloe hat only has 2 sets of decreases over the crown of the head, which I think if you had a maybe bulkier weight yarn, again, I was not trying to follow the patterns to a T. I knew that my yarn weight was off compared to the patterns, but if it was a bulkier yarn, I think it would have given it a little bit more structure. But because I was trying to use a DK and a superwash DK at that, after I blocked it, it kind of flopped in the back of my head in a way that I did not enjoy at all. So I undid it and remade it into the twisted hat from the same book. Again, completely off gauge. I basically just followed the number of stitches that were supposed to be in each cable, but the twisted hat, like, I think probably has half of the number of cables in the hat that mine does. And funnily enough, I was really nervous the whole time about running out of yarn and ended up with a ton extra. I was so nervous of running out that I ended up knitting part of what was behind the folded brim in a different color, actually in double Sunday, some double Sunday I had left over by Sandisk Yarn. Wasn't a problem. I also omitted the triple folds for the brim. Could have done it, had enough yarn. But I think by the time I finished it, I was just so done with ripping back and restarting that I was like, it's fine, I'm done with it. The reason I say that I thought this hat was a flop, and I'm like, maybe it's not, it's kind of cute, was the top of the head ended up coming out way longer than I needed it to be after blocking. Like, I could have gotten rid of like an inch of this. So I think when I like am intentional about putting it on and making sure it flops back, I think it looks really cute. But I don't know, it sometimes like puckers a little weird right here in a way that I don't like. So I think I either need to commit and just say I'm wearing it or rip back. I feel like it's been long enough now that I could rip back and maybe it wouldn't make me too sad. But I could get rid of like at least an inch or 2 in the crown. But that all being said, the yarn was beautiful to work with. I loved all the colors. This is like, these are my absolute favorite colors. Kind of like if you couldn't tell with the Sophie scarf, like a dusty pink, like a blushy color. And I always need to put a pom-pom on the top of my hats. It's just, I can't not. I'm basic like that. I do think that it kind of came out looking a little bit like a brain, which is relevant to my job actually, so maybe not a bad thing. I envisioned this being a hat that I would wear on my walks to work every morning, but I'm always afraid it's gonna mess up my hair, so I never end up wearing it to work because I don't want to show up and have my hair be a mess. So, you know, kind of a flop in that sense. I do think it's beautiful. It was very fun to knit. What a fun yarn. I also just don't know if, you know, variegated yarn is necessarily fully in line with my personal style, but for a hat, it's fun. And I love the colors. So that's that. My 6th finished project is the mixed rib cami, which I completed in April. And this is by Florence Miller. I had been working on this since like the October of 2024. Yeah. It's a little wrinkly, sorry. I knit this in Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino in the colorway Bark. If you can't tell, kind of the browns were my my biggest color interest around this time in my life. I love this top. I love it so much. I think this pattern is beautiful and so detail oriented. I don't need to go too into it because I think everyone and their brother knit this top. It's gorgeous. I did knit, again, entirely off gauge. I knit, you know, even though I'm a very tight knitter, I went down a needle size because I did knit a gauge swatch for this though. So it was a conscious change that I made. I wanted the finished fabric to be denser than how it was coming out when I was knitting on the needles that were called for in the pattern, because I knew this was going to be a summer garment and I didn't want you to be able to see like my bra, or like if I chose not to wear a bra, anything underneath. A modification that I ended up having to make was, I believe I have one extra row. I do. So you knit this project, it's, you know, you knit the back panel, cast on for like these tiny little, I don't even know, straps here. And then you cast on for the front. I ended up knitting an extra panel of ribbing in the front because after knitting the back, I was a little afraid that this thickness wouldn't cover my boobs well in the front. So because of how tight I was knitting it and because of how much negative ease I was making with this garment. So I added an extra panel. It fits beautifully, absolutely beautifully. I love the decreases that happen under the arm. I think that is such a beautiful detail. And I love the I-cord edging that goes around the neckline, around the arms, not around the bottom, just needed to check. It was tedious to knit, but totally worth it. I ended up putting a little bit, the reason it's scrunching up, I put some elastic in this neckband because I picked up, I think, too many stitches on my I-cord. And so at first it was kind of like gaping weird. And so I put some elastic in, fixed it beautifully, and now it hugs me perfectly. I have no complaints with this. I haven't worn it as much as I would like because I think I've discovered, well, I've always known about myself, I cannot tolerate heat. That is probably one of the reasons I love knitting so much, is because I love winter. I can't tolerate the heat. So wearing something that has wool in it in the summer can sometimes feel really unbearable for me, but it's beautiful. So on a chillier summer day, specifically like at night, you can throw a little like jean shirt over it. Delicious, so cute. My next finished object in 2025 is also one of my favorites. I keep saying that. I think overall this year was a huge knitting success. This pattern is the Picnic Cardigan by Kutova Kika. I have a lot of her patterns this year, but felt only right. This pattern, she released pictures for it, I think in the spring. Oh, it has to have been in the spring. She released, or like even in the winter, had released pictures on Instagram, this like very cute tie-up cardigan. And that was the time when like tie-up cardigans were everywhere. And at first I was resistant to knit it because I try really hard to be very aware of what I'm knitting and trying not to knit to trends, trying not to dress to trends. But I loved the product pictures of this, especially she knit it in like this beautiful cobalt blue color. I'm not someone who loves to wear blue or brighter blues like that. So I think this color green was also having a moment at that time. And I was like, I know exactly what I need to make. It needs to be that beautiful cardigan in that beautiful green color. And this yarn is really special to me because after all of the success of my mother-daughter trip to Savannah, where I bought this yarn, my mom and I ended up planning a trip to Europe to celebrate my graduation from graduate school. And we went to Portugal. And I was able to buy some yarn on that trip. So this sweater always reminds me of that trip. We went to the Ovelha Negra, I think I'm saying that right, store in Porto, which was beautiful. The shop owner was so kind. And I bought 2 yarns from them to make this sweater. The first one I bought is the Olivia yarn, which is the yarn that is made in their store. And this is a merino cotton mix, which I don't think I fully realized until I was prepping for this video, but I think that explains a lot. This yarn, it's marketed as being fingering weight, but it's lighter than that, I think. I think it knits up lighter than that. And there is so much yarn in each of these balls. There's 350 meters. So I think for this whole sweater, I barely used, did I use like 3 plus maybe a little bit? I barely used any yarn. It was crazy. I mean, I have a whole ball and a half left over. I have another half. This is in the colorway 92, I believe. But beautiful, beautiful, beautiful yarn. I'm so pleased with this. I've actually been trying to buy more of this yarn from their website, but it was down for a little bit. But when prepping for this video, I saw that their website is back up. I will be buying more of this. I think this yarn held with the Sayer Silk Mohair it is such a drapey, soft, beautiful, like not too warm, not at all itchy fabric. It is by far my favorite fabric I've ever knit, I believe. And this was in the color 57. Beautiful, beautiful color. So the finished garment, what can I say? It's perfection. I only ended up knitting one of the ties because once it was finished, I liked the way it looked open, and I have leftover yarn, so if at any point I decide I want to knit more of the ties, I can. But my favorite, oh, there's an end I didn't weave in. My favorite detail is the fact that for this top tie, you knit like a channel for the I-cord to pass through. So this is all open. You could pull the I-cord straight out. But this channel, I love the way you basically knit purl stitches and then you fold it so that the stockinette is on the outside and you sew it down, or like bind off with stitches that are on the unfinished fabric. I think it's such a interesting detail that I've never seen really in a knit garment before, especially like the tie-up sweaters that have been coming out. I love the double knit button band, and I love the way it kind of flows seamlessly from the rest of the stockinette, but gives it this beautiful feature. Of course, everything is in twisted rib, and I love that the shoulders, that it's a set-in sleeve. A few modifications that I made to this pattern, again, because of how specific I am about sleeves and shoulders. And this is actually something I did on my Lion sweater by Petite Knit. I didn't do any sleeve decreases in the actual sleeve. I love a little flare sleeve moment, and I think by omitting decreases, you naturally get that kind of gentle flare without like a kind of bell sleeve. So I tend to avoid decreases. However, one issue I had with this sweater was I thought that the armholes were really quite deep, especially for what I was going for. I was not going for an oversized look. I wanted this to be relatively, it kind of hits me right at I wear high-waisted jeans always. It hits me right at the waistband of my high-waisted jeans, and I did not want it to be baggy. I wanted it to be pretty fitted. And so, but the armholes were like quite large, despite the overall fittedness of the sweater. So I ended up doing some decreases in the underarm. That kind of gives the sleeve, I don't know if you can even see, like this shape in the underarm. I'm really pleased with that modification. It was like a modification I did in the moment because I started knitting the sleeves to pattern and was like, whoa, there's a lot of fabric right here. I think if I am planning on knitting this again. My mom wants one actually, and like a, kind of like a burgundy red color. So I will be knitting one for her, but I will have to maybe figure something out so I don't have to do these decreases. Possibly, just making the armholes smaller. Yeah, so we'll see. But I love this sweater. It's not one that I wear as frequently as some of the other sweaters I've shown already in this video, but it's beautiful and a great statement piece. My next finished project I finished in October. This was also kind of a flop, unfortunately. This sweater, it's a vest with a turtleneck. It's really wrinkly because I really haven't worn it. And this is the Himalaya slipover by Knits for Days. This was knit in Sanduskarn Double Sunday in the color marzipan, I believe, or almond. Marzipan? I think it's marzipan, which is kind of like this creamy grayish. And I had used this color yarn to knit the stripe pipe sweater by Kotova Kika. That was like one of my first knits. That came out way too small. I knit that a while ago. But I do love that sweater. And I think I used this color as the base color in that sweater with like the very colorful stripes. And I think it was a very beautiful color when you have these bright color stripes also with it. But in a turtleneck like this, I find that it kind of just looks like a dirty white. Like I didn't wash it enough, or that it got like discolored in the wash. The lighting in here has changed a lot. It got really cloudy all of a sudden, so I don't know if you can really see it. I feel like that's pretty accurate. And so I don't really know how to style it is the problem. I had this like vision of being able to wear it to work over some of my tops that have more billowy sleeves. And I just can't do that. I think it only really looks good if I wear it without anything under it, and I don't like this color for wearing nothing under it. So I need to decide whether I'm going to frog this or whether I'm going to dye it. Possibly like brown, but that might be a little bit too on the nose for all of my other knit projects so far. Or whether I make it like a olivey green color, that might be nice. So we'll see what I end up deciding. That isn't at all to say this pattern was beautiful. Loved this pattern. Again, some great details. I love the double knitting around the armholes. I love the increases, I should say, over the slopes of the shoulders. I love the way that you pick up for the neck. And again, this is all in 2x2 rib. I made my turtleneck a lot shorter than the pattern called for because I have a short neck. And I think that's one of my last complaints with this is I wasn't expecting the 2x2 rib to block out the way it did. And so the neckline kind of lacks any and all structure. So it came out a little bit looser than I wanted. I'm just not thrilled with it. It was a really fun knit and I'm proud of it. I think it looks beautiful, but it's just not what I had envisioned it being, unfortunately. So that's that. My 9th finished object for the year, I don't have with me because it was a gift knit for my mom for Christmas. I knit her a pattern from this book, actually. I knit the My Favorite Story sweater by Veronica Lindbergh, Kotova Kika, from her book Knits to Wear. My mom, when I was telling my mom I was gonna knit her something for Christmas, I let her look through this book and pick what she wanted, and she said she wanted this sweater in as close to the same colors as Veronica's wearing, so kind of a light pink. So I ended up knitting this in 2 strands of Knitting for Olive merino in the color soft rose and 1 color of Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair in the color cherry blossom, and it made an incredibly beautiful fabric with like a nice density to it. I loved knitting this. It took me longer than it should have, specifically because I didn't read closely enough when I started the pattern. So I started it only holding 1 strand of the merino and 1 strand of the mohair together, and I was like, wow, like this fabric looks really gappy and like not like how hers looks. No duh, because you're supposed to be holding 2 strands of merino. So I got pretty far in the yoke, had to start over. I tried to rip it back, but the merino really, or the mohair really loved to stick together. So I ended up just leaving that and was like, if I need to rip it back at the end because I don't have enough yarn, I will. I didn't end up needing it. So yeah, this pattern, obsessed with it. This was a joy to knit for my mom. Specifically, I have always wanted to do a very in-depth cable knit project, and this was the first time I've done a cable knit project that had a ton of different cables and that required you to read a chart. So it was really fulfilling to get to do that, for one, and for 2, it had some details that I knew I wouldn't like on myself, but I knew would look beautiful on my mom, specifically the the cables that make up the raglan seams. Like I mentioned, I don't love a raglan on me. Again, when I tried this sweater on, I found it almost made me look like I had shoulder pads because of the cut, but on my mom, it looks beautiful. It is an absolutely gorgeous sweater. I love this pattern. She is so happy with it. I'm very proud of that sweater. And that's really all I have to say. I just gave it to her about a month ago. I finished it well before Christmas. I gave it to her as an early Christmas gift, and yeah, it was delightful. And my last finished object of 2025, I forgot what year it was this stocking. It really needs a block. Please excuse how crazy it looks right now. This is the December stocking by Petite Knit. I knit this in just some leftover acrylic yarn that I had from when I first started knitting, before I realized I didn't like acrylic yarn, and wanted to get it out of my stash, so knit it into this cute stocking. I made two. This one I actually just finished yesterday, so it does not count towards my 2025 knitting, but I knit these stockings for my two best friends from grad school, and for their Christmas gifts. My plan is to finish them up by embroidering their names on the top and then filling them with a bunch of goodies. So these stockings, it was a super fun, easy, quick pattern. I did make some modifications. I omitted like half of a cable repeat in the toe and shortened the toe cap on both of these because I was running out of yarn. I only have one ball of each, and again, these were in my stash. And I also changed the cable on the side based on, I'm forgetting whose picture I followed, but I found a picture in the project photos that did this, and I loved the way it looked. So changed it to a 3/2, like, I don't even know what this is called, cable, whatever, you can see it. And I also did seed stitch in the middle of these diamond cables to give it a little bit more interest. And I also omitted the cables on the back because I was like, why waste my time? You hang it like this. So I just did seed stitch on the back. I am looking forward to blocking this, looking forward to doing the embroidered name. I think this will be a really, really sweet Christmas gift filled with goodies. Fun pattern, no complaints. I think one of my goals for 2026, one of my goals for 2026 will be to knit myself some stockings. So possibly this pattern, but we'll see. So those are all my finished objects for 2025. I know on YouTube, some people knit way more than that in a year, but I'm really thrilled with what I knit. I feel like I put a lot of intentionality into each object I made. I'm happy with most of the finished products, and at the very least, I'm happy with the level of skill and intention I put into the products. So very pleased with myself. There are a few knits I'm bringing into the new year that I did not finish in 2025 that I thought I would just mention. The first is this scrappy scarf pattern. I'm using up knitting like scraps, yarn scraps to make this. And it's in like a linen stitch, I believe, just like a really, really long pattern. I'm kind of alternating going like how many times I go down and back with a given color. So the brown, I'm pretty consistently doing like 3 rows of, and I'm making sure that brown is like held throughout the scarf to give a little continuity. And I'm mainly sticking to my scraps that are in the browns, creams, and pinks and purples to try to give it a little bit of, cohesion. I am not someone who really loves the look of all scrappy things, but when I saw the linen stitch, I thought it was really beautiful, and I figured with the right color combo, it could fit into kind of my personal style. I think this scarf is actually quite long, deceptively. It's pretty bunched up on these cords. And I think the colors like really suit me. I think it's beautiful. I think it will match a lot of my knit things that I've made. And yeah, so I'm just chugging away slowly on it. I stopped working on it so I could knit my mom's Christmas sweater because I was really all steam ahead on that. And my plan is to incorporate some more of the yarn that I've been using recently into this as I enter 2026. So yeah, not much else to say about that. Another garment that I'm bringing into 2026 is this off-the-shoulder top that is also from the Knits to Wear book, so I'm getting my money's worth. I think this is called the Fortuna top in that book, and it's a very simple stockinette off-the-shoulder top. It's designed to have a crochet border around the edges. I think I'm just going to do an I-cord edge because number one, I don't know how to crochet, and number two, I don't really want a color, like she knits it so that there's a different color as the crochet border, and I think I just want it all to be pink. I am knitting this in yarn that I bought in Spain on a trip with my boyfriend. This is cotton yarn, the brand Casa Sol Homemade, and this is made in Spain, and it's 100% cotton in this beautiful bright pink color that kind of reminded me of how bright and warm and beautiful it was in southern Spain. So I was like, you know what, I need to make it. I have no idea how long this top is going to turn out. My plan is to knit as long as I can with this ball and then do all the I-cord bindings with this ball so that I know I won't run out, and then go as long as I can make it. I tend to like, despite how cropped a lot of my knits have come out this year, I definitely prefer things that fit me a little bit longer. I find them to be better for my height. So yeah, excited about that. Excited to restart that as we enter the spring. And the last knit project I'm bringing into 2026, I started at the very end of 2025. I had dreams of this being finished for Christmas. No way. This is the Holly Off the Shoulder sweater by Knit Amour, and I'm knitting this in the color, in Knitting for Olive Merino in the color Bordeaux, and Knitting for Olive Soft Silk Mohair in the color Claret. That is the yarn I've used the most this year, that yarn combo, as I think is pretty typical with most knitters. So it's knit up into this very beautiful burgundy color. I'm really glad I decided to hold these two colors together. I think it gives, the claret brings more of a red hue to the Bordeaux instead of having it lean more purple. So gives it a little bit of warmth and brightness that I really enjoy. I love, yeah, there we go. That's a good representation. I love the way this feels. This is knit on 4.5 millimeter needles, and it's making this like beautifully drapey fabric. So this sweater is designed to have 1x1 ribbing around the shoulders, and then stockinette body and sleeves, and the body and the sleeves kind of have flares to them, and they are designed to have rolled hems. So really looking forward to knitting that. I still have some more work to do on the body, but my plan is to finish up with this yarn on the body, put the stitches on hold, and then do the sleeves to make sure that I have enough yarn to make the sleeves the length I want, because I want them to be long enough, you know, kind of going to the back of my hand with a flare. Love it. I'm afraid that the shoulders are going to be a little too tight, but just like specifically with the bind on, I did an Italian cast on, tubular cast on, and that was my first time doing that. And it came out super neat and very beautiful, but it is tighter than the rest of the ribbing. And so I guess we'll see in the end after blocking how it looks, but I'm afraid I might end up having to cut that out, not only to do a stretchier cast off, but also possibly to lengthen this ribbing, because when I put it on to try it on, the way it rolls up shortens the ribbing a little bit, and I would love it if it was a little more dramatic. But loving working on this. This has been a really mindless knit now that I'm in the stockinette parts. So those are all of the things that I worked on and or finished in 2025. It was a really wonderful year of knitting. I'm very pleased with it. As I enter 2026, I have two main goals. My first is to gift knit as I go. As you saw, I was only able to finish 2 gift knits in 2025, and I have this dream of, for Christmas, having gift knits for many of the people in my life whom I love. And so I think the best way to do that is at all times having one of my own knits and one gift knit on the needles at least. Just so that I'm doing them as I go, and that way I'm not stressed at the end of the year. And the second is to be, I think I have been thoughtful this year, but to continue to be really thoughtful with the garments I'm choosing to knit, ensuring that they're not only enjoyable for me to knit on, but also that they are in line with my personal style. And that's something I've been thinking about a lot and will continue to explore as I go into the new year. So yeah, that's kind of it for me for today. This video came out a lot longer than I had anticipated, and I appreciate you sitting and watching and joining me. I know that there's a lot of these videos on YouTube at this time of year, and so I'm honored that you decided to click on my video. I'm not 100% sure what I want this channel to look like as we go into the new year. I'm just really looking forward to being a more active participant in the knitting community. I'm really hoping that this video serves as a way for me to start interacting more with the knitting content creators that I've really come to love, you know, in terms of their content and the knits they make and their, you know, kind of the way they approach their creating. So, my only goal with this is to, you know, the only goal with this that I'm certain of, 100% certain of, is my goal to find community. And chatting with you here is the start of that. So if you liked this video, if you liked what I made, please consider giving me a like or subscribing to my channel, and leave a comment about what knits you liked in this video, what you're currently working on, whether you're interested in making any of these things, or whether you have any tips for things for me to knit in the new year. It was really, really nice getting to spend time with you today. Happy knitting, sending lots of love. Bye.